Hello and welcome to Speed Politics 101, your go-to channel for unpacking the world of politics, society, and everything in between. I'm Billy Agwanda, and I'm thrilled to have you here as we explore the fascinating ideas that shape our societies, past, present, and future. If you're curious about how politics influences our everyday lives, hit the subscribe and notification button so you never miss an update. Today we embark on a journey into the life and ideas of one of the most influential thinkers of Western philosophy, Saint Augustine of Hippo. Born in 354 CE in the Roman province of North Africa, Augustine, originally named Aurelius Augustinus, became a towering intellectual figure in the late Roman world. His ideas have resonated across centuries, shaping how we think about society, justice, governance, and the intricate relationship between the sacred and the secular. Now, imagine the context of Augustine's life. He lived during the twilight of the Roman Empire, a time of immense upheaval and transformation. Pagan Rome was crumbling, and Christianity, once a persecuted faith, was rising to prominence. Augustine, as a Catholic bishop in Hippo, bore witness to these dramatic shifts. This unique vantage point profoundly shaped his philosophy, which became a crucial intellectual bridge between late antiquity and the medieval world. Before diving into his political and social philosophy, let's recognize the scope of his contributions. Over a span of 3 decades, Augustine authored more than 110 works. Yes, 110. From sermons to treatises to letters, his writings cover a vast intellectual landscape. It's no wonder that many scholars consider him the most influential Western philosopher of his time. But Augustine didn't set out to be a political or social philosopher in the modern sense. He was first and foremost a theologian, deeply concerned with the nature of God, human salvation, and the spiritual journey. However, his reflections on topics like human society, justice, governance, and peace have had profound implications for political thought, influencing thinkers as diverse as Machiavelli, Luther, Calvin, and Hobbes. Augustine's political and social perspectives are deeply rooted in his theological beliefs, shaped by the historical and cultural milieu of his time. To fully grasp his objectives, it is crucial to consider this context. Augustine stands uniquely at the crossroads of Christianity, philosophy, and politics, making him one of the most influential figures of late antiquity. As a Christian cleric, Augustine saw it as his mission to protect his congregation from the persistent challenges posed by heretical doctrines that emerged in a period no longer guided by the direct divine revelations of the apostolic age. As a philosopher, he framed his arguments within the Platonic tradition, drawing heavily from the Neoplatonists of Alexandria to articulate his ideas. So how can we broadly describe the Augustinian worldview? Augustine sees the Christian scriptures not just as a religious text, but as the ultimate standard, one that all philosophy, including political philosophy, must be measured against. His worldview is rooted in core Christian teachings: the creation, the fall of man, and the redemption. Unlike the pagan philosophers before him, who believed history repeats itself in cycles, Augustine understood history as a linear journey, with a definite beginning and an end. He teaches us that the earth was created ex nihilo, out of nothing, by a perfectly good and just God. God also created man, and while the earth is not eternal, human beings were made to endure forever. But there's a catch. Humanity's eternal existence is complicated by the fall of Adam. Endowed with free will, Adam disrupted the perfect order established by God. This original sin left all of humanity inheriting its consequences: pride, greed, and self-interest. Augustine therefore argues that for reasons known only to God, some are predestined to salvation as an act of pure mercy, independent of anything they do or don't do on earth. The majority, however, are destined for damnation, as a just consequence of Adam's fall. Human history, Augustine believes, unfolds according to God's divine plan, which will ultimately lead to salvation or damnation for every individual. In this divine framework, Augustine offers a view of politics that may seem unsettling to some. He argues that political and legal systems are a punishment for humanity's fallen state. The state, with its power to command, coerce, punish, and even take life, is a tool used by God to fulfill his ultimate purpose. The state serves to chastise the wicked and refine the righteous. But perhaps most importantly, it offers a remedy for the disorder caused by the fall. It creates some semblance of peace and order in a world that is deeply flawed. Now, Augustine's doctrine of predestination leads to some difficult questions. If God has already determined who will be saved and who will be damned, why does political life matter? For those destined for damnation, what purpose does their chastisement by the state serve? For those chosen for salvation, why would political trials help refine them? Augustine wisely doesn't attempt to answer these questions fully, acknowledging that these matters are beyond human understanding. Instead, his contribution is to offer a description of political life on earth, not a path to salvation. Even strict adherence to Christian teachings cannot guarantee salvation. It is only through God's will that one is chosen. Amidst the unraveling of the Roman Empire, Augustine faced the pressing challenge of reconciling the eternal truths of his Christian faith with the harsh political realities of the world. At this intersection, Augustine raises what he sees as the central question of politics. How can the faithful live justly in a world dominated by selfishness, injustice, and an often confusing mix of good and evil? How can we, in the midst of this turmoil, live in search of the heavenly reward that awaits us in the afterlife? Let us now dive deeper into the foundational political and social concepts of Augustine, beginning with his conceptualization of two cities. Augustine conceptualizes two allegorical cities, the city of God and the earthly city, distinguished by the destinies of their citizens, even though the two groups coexist. Citizens of the earthly city, the unregenerate descendants of Adam and Eve, are damned due to Adam's fall. These individuals, alienated from God's love, not because God withholds his love, but because they reject it, direct their affections toward objects other than God. Their lives are marked by a desire for material possessions and dominance over others. Conversely, citizens of the city of God are pilgrims and foreigners whose love is directed toward God, though they remain out of place in a world lacking institutions that resemble the city of God. Neither the political state nor the institutional church can equate to this divine city. Moreover, Augustine asserts that no one holds dual citizenship. Every person belongs exclusively to one city. On the question of justice and the state, Augustine defines justice as giving every man his due, rooting this concept in Christian philosophy. He explains that true justice is love serving God only, and therefore ruling well all else. This forms the basis for distinguishing ideal political states, which do not exist on earth, from non-ideal states, encompassing all earthly governments. For Augustine, no earthly state, including the Roman Empire, can be equated with the city of God, as none possess true justice. Without justice, Augustine argues, kingdoms become no more than organized bands of criminals, and criminal groups mirror small-scale kingdoms. Earthly states exhibit only relative justice, making their legitimacy similarly relative. An emperor and a pirate rule equally legitimate realms if their justice is equal. Despite their imperfections, political states fulfill a divine purpose, acting as instruments to maintain order and curb the chaos of human sinfulness. In this capacity, states serve as an expression of divine mercy, especially when righteously ruled. They prevent societal collapse by restraining wickedness through fear of punishment. While God ultimately punishes the sins of the damned, the state enforces immediate penalties, applying them to both the righteous and the wicked. Rulers, as ministers of God, are justified in punishing sins against nature, and under certain circumstances, sins against custom or against the laws, which evolve over time. In this way, the state represents a partial restoration of order after the fall of man. While rulers have the authority to enact any law consistent with divine law, citizens are obligated to obey political leaders, whether righteous or wicked. Augustine allows no room for civil disobedience, maintaining that citizens must obey God's law above all else. When obedience to God conflicts with civil authority, citizens must accept the consequences of their disobedience. However, those administering punishment must do so without joy, as reflected in Augustine's proposed prayer for judges. From my necessities deliver thou me. Throughout history, human society has been deeply intertwined with warfare, and Augustine interprets war as a component of God's overarching plan for humanity. He asserts that war is subject to God's judgment and mercy, determining whether conflicts are resolved quickly or prolonged. As Augustine explains, it rests with the decision of God in his just judgment and mercy either to afflict or console mankind, so that some wars come to an end more speedily, others more slowly. According to Augustine, war therefore serves as a form of divine justice to remind humanity of the importance of righteous living. While some may question the morality of God using war as a means to chastise the wicked, Augustine emphasizes two critical points. First, that God's justice is absolute. For Augustine, all of God's actions are inherently just, even if their specific purposes elude human understanding. This raises a philosophical dilemma. Is it just to compel people to act righteously when they would otherwise choose evil? If forced actions lack genuine repentance or a change of heart, does such compulsion truly align with divine justice? Augustine responds by rejecting the notion that respecting human agency justifies allowing individuals to persist in evil. Instead, he argues that a good will seeks to correct a bad will, as no one is condemned except by their own bad will, and no one is saved without a good will. While humans may not fully grasp how God uses war to achieve his purposes, those who possess a good will understand their role in administering divine discipline. This discipline, whether through war or other means, aims to lead sinners toward repentance and reformation. Secondly, Augustine also views war as a form of chastisement, emphasizing that withholding punishment can be more harmful than administering it. He insists that it is not cruelty but mercy to prevent individuals from yielding to evil and to compel them toward goodness when possible. Augustine states, "It does not follow that those who are loved should be cruelly left to yield themselves with impunity to their bad will, but in so far as power is given, they ought to be both prevented from evil and compelled to good." However, Augustine acknowledges the limitations of war's effects. While war may restrain the wicked from committing evil acts, it does not necessarily transform their hearts. Like a criminal punished without remorse, the unrepentant sinner may fail to benefit from God's chastening, which Augustine regards as a profound tragedy. During an era marked by conflicts among nations over sovereignty and wars among sects, including Jews, pagans, Christians, and heretics, Augustine grappled with the question of what justifies warfare for a Christian. On one side, the wicked show little concern for the justice of wars. On the other, the righteous harbor a vain hope of escaping the effects of war entirely. At best, they can aspire to engage in just wars rather than unjust ones. While this is far from a perfect solution, such perfection belongs only to the heavenly city of God. In the imperfect earthly realm, where challenges abound, the just war serves as a practical means for the righteous, who aspire to heavenly citizenship, to navigate the moral complexities of life. For Augustine, the just war serves as a coping mechanism for the righteous, who aspire to be citizens of the city of God. In terms of jus ad bellum, the justice of going to war, war is a means for righteous rulers to minimize violent international conflicts, aligning with divine will as much as possible and ensuring their actions are justified. In terms of jus in bello, the justice and the conduct of war, it is a means for righteous combatants, under divine mandate, to carry out their duties as justly as possible, even in the most difficult circumstances or under the most corrupt regimes. Augustine believes that Christ's servants, whether kings, princes, judges, soldiers, or any other social rank, must endure the wickedness of a corrupt state if necessary, and in doing so, they can secure a place of glory in the city of God. Ultimately, Augustine, whose focus is on attaining citizenship in the heavenly city, feels compelled to define what constitutes a just war in this fallen world. This is because the moral life is intricately connected to social life, and an individual cannot be separated from their role in either the city of God or the earthly city. Specifically, the just person who walks by faith needs to understand how to navigate the injustices and contradictions of war, just as they need to understand how to navigate all other aspects of the world in which they are strangers and pilgrims. In conclusion, St. Augustine's principles of just war serve as a timeless moral guide for navigating the complexities of conflict. He reminds us that war, though deeply regrettable, can only be justified under strict conditions, a just cause, right intentions, and the authority of a legitimate power. Even in the heat of battle, the principles of proportionality, discrimination, and good faith must prevail, ensuring that justice and humanity guide our actions. Augustine's teachings challenge us to approach war not as a means of domination or revenge, but as a solemn and reluctant response to injustice, always with the ultimate goal of restoring peace. In a world still marred by conflict, his wisdom urges us to temper power with morality and to strive for a higher purpose even in the gravest circumstances. Let us carry these lessons forward, mindful that the pursuit of justice must always be rooted in a commitment to our shared humanity.